sink in on yourself, become shy and reserved, have no self-confidence. All of those things happen. And I, I mean, I'm, full transparency here. When I was growing up, my father whipped us with a belt. It wasn't violent. It didn't hurt. I know that we don't do that today. We don't. But back then it was the norm. You got a whip. I mean, we got whippings at school, for Pete's sake. I mean, I've got paddled before at school. I was a talker. Can you believe that? I was a talker, and I would get in trouble for talking uh, all the time. And we would have to go stand in the hallway and get a paddling with a big wooden paddle. It was acceptable at that time. Late 70s, early 80s, we would get whippings. It wasn't very often, but it was enough, and it was wonderful. I'm being sarcastic. It was much better if they took you out in the hallway to do it instead of whipping you in front of the entire class, because they removed some of the humiliation, not all of it, especially if you were a crier, which I was. I was a crier. So you give me a whipping, I'm going to cry. Other people, and you might have seen this, you could beat them upside the head with a bat and they would never show any emotion whatsoever. That's dangerous. Those are the people who we have to have they gone through so much that they're able to completely encapsulate their feelings and not have any emotion towards what is happening. That's a huge red flag. A huge red flag. It tells me that more than, I don't know if you can hear that or not, but I'm in the hotel room and evidently the maids are outside talking and they're singing songs and enjoying themselves. That's hilarious. It just kind of startled me when they started talking. Anyway, oh my gosh, that is so funny. Anyway, back to this. He would be, imagine being shocked, having an electric shock as punishment. Oh my goodness. I mean, in today's world, your child would be taken away from you, and it would be very unlikely you would ever get custody of that child back. And so, as it should be. I know that there's a big argument that children should always be placed back with their parents, and that's the ultimate goal of any court system. We will pull them out. We'll put them in, some sort of juvenile home, or even a juvenile correctional facility, and with the ultimate goal of getting them back to their parents. That is not always good. That is not always the best outcome for that child. And I know for a fact, I've witnessed it. I know these things because of all my experiences in early childhood. You can have a child who is abused on every single day by a parent, and they will still choose to go home to that parent because it is their parent. It doesn't mean it's good for that child, even though they want to, even though they cry and they want to go back with that parent. There's brief moments where they are loved and cared for in most cases. And that's what they cling to. They cling to those good moments because they're so good, because they're rare. But then they have to suffer through all of the other times when they're being abused to get that one apology or that one bit of positive experience with that family member or whomever it is that's abusive to them. So for him, I mean, he may have thought this was just the norm and that everybody had that kind of life. We hear that a lot. We hear a lot of people who have been abused that in many different ways, that they just thought it was normal, that everybody had that. They didn't know until much later in life that no one else was being abused, or very few others were being abused. They thought it was just everybody got that same treatment. And that's a lot of times that's when you'll see that switch turn on in their mind, and they have, nervous breakdowns. They can't understand what they did that was so bad. They always turn it back on themselves when in fact it was the abuser who was the problem, right? I mean, we know that. But psychologically, it messes people up. It messes people up in a great, great way. At a very early age, as young as 5, Jesperson would capture and torture animals. Again, McDonald triad, but let me tell you something. If you've got a kid that young and they're hurting animals like that, they have absolutely no empathy. What do we know about empathy? I'm going to give you a minute to think about it. You don't have empathy. You have no reaction. You do not have the correct reactions to abuse, neglect. You may enjoy it because that's where you feel power. And that should be one of the number one things we look for in a classroom. Even just talking about that kind of thing is so serious that child needs to have some sort of screening, some sort of intervention, and then there needs to be a long-term plan. You realize that these things do not get fixed overnight. We know that, right? If you've ever watched Dr. Phil, you know that these things take time. And when you're trying to rehabilitate someone who's been severely abused, they'll never be 100%. They'll never be 100%, but they can be. They can have their life improved upon, and perhaps prevent them from being abusive to others in the future. And so it's really what I want to find. What works? What are the things that work? What can we do in classrooms? What can we do if we have kids in our Sunday school class who show up and we know they have a propensity, we find out that they have a propensity to kill animals or torture animals, hurt their friends, all those kind of things. What do we do? Talk about it with our friends and do nothing? No, we have to have a plan of action. So it's reported also that he enjoyed watching animals kill each other, as well as the feeling he got from taking their lives. I'm going to liken this to something that's very common in the South, which is like cockfighting. Cockfighting is horrific. And, they actually put these like razors on the claws of the roosters, and it's just horrific. And I've not ever been to one in person, but honestly, in East Tennessee, literally in a county right next to us, they are nationally known for cockfighting. And it's just something that's well known in our area, and it's horrible. So I feel like it would be an easy comment and an accurate comment for me to say that people who enjoy cockfighting, people who enjoy dog fighting, any kind of animal hurting another animal, they are on that pathway. They are on that pathway to that lack of empathy or zero empathy. They're getting this good feeling, this euphoria from this violence. It's just appalling to me. That's one thing I can tell you my mother taught us was empathy. Me and my brother. And I would honestly say he's probably more empathetic than I am, and I am very empathetic, but he's probably worse. Not worse. He probably is much more emotional than I am, and I'm pretty emotional, and very much can feel others' pain. It's that, I'm very empathic, so I feel other people's pain. And I can really, I can suffer right along with them, and it's difficult. And I think maybe that's one reason that I'm so very focused on this type of thing. I can feel the pain of the victim, the pain of the family. I can feel the pain of the serial killer. They did not have good lives. They were treated horribly. Beaten with a belt in front of others, received electric shock. I mean, just horrible the way they were treated. Now, that does not excuse their actions later on. It doesn't. But it certainly gives us a full, clear window into why they are. Um, and it's just, for me, it's very disturbing and very sad. And I want to feel bad for them. But then I also flip around and I'm like, oh my God, they're just monsters. And I feel more sorry for the victim. I don't think it's a contest. I think that we've failed these people as a society. I think that their parents failed them. I think that the school system failed them. I think that the judicial system failed them. Mental health system has failed them. I think we all have a very long way to go before we're successful. And I don't know that we ever will be, but I think that we should make an effort. You're always going to lose if you don't make that effort. That's why this is just so, so important. Um, when he was severely beating animals, they lived in a trailer park, and he would capture birds, stray cats, and dogs around the trailer park. He would severely beat them, and then he would strangle them to death. And it's noted that his father was very proud of him for doing that. I can't even fathom that. But again, that goes towards our idea of what his environment was like. His father was proud of him for doing that. If he was as we know, he was a violent parent. So whatever he could do, whatever Jesperson could do to get some positive feedback from his parents, that's what he was going to do. And if his father felt like that was a good thing, and yeah, way to go, son, I'm proud of you, he's going to continue doing it to get that same positive feedback. He should have been removed from that home early on, very, very early on. So in the years following all of these things, he said that he often thought about what it would be like to do the same thing to a human that he was doing to the animals. And that desire manifested into 2 attempted murders. The first happened when Jesperson was around age 10, when he was friends with a boy named Martin. The two would often get into trouble, and Jesperson claimed he was often punished many times for things Martin had done and shifted the blame. This led Jesperson to violently attack Martin until his father pulled him away. He later claimed his intention was to kill the boy. Approximately 1 year later, Jesperson was swimming in a lake when another boy held him underwater until he blacked out. Sometime later at a public pool, Jesperson attempted to drown the boy, same boy, by holding his head under the water until a lifeguard pulled him away. Jesperson also reported that he was raped at the age of 14. Again, severely traumatic. You know, if you were almost drowned to the point where you blacked out, you would definitely have that fight or flight kick in. And that is, I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but fight or flight response is absolutely exasperating. You are exhausted when it's over. It takes so much of you out. It's a horrible experience, but it is, genetically, naturally what we do. And I know he had that, and it probably impacted him greatly, and therefore he wanted to seek revenge. And that's exactly what he did. If he was raped at age 14, of course, we know those teen years, he's going through puberty. He already has a really messed up home environment anyway. His school environment's not much better. He doesn't have a lot of friends. And then, of course, he gets raped. That completely takes all the power away from him. And it doesn't say if he was raped by, someone in his family or a stranger or someone in the neighborhood. It doesn't say that. Doesn't matter. He was raped. And so for me, that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. He graduated from high school in 73, but did not attend college because his father did not believe he could do it. Although Jesperson was not successful with girls in high school, having never even attended a school dance or his